Hey, and welcome back to another episode of the Relationship School's Smart Couple Podcast. I'm your host, Jayson Gaddis, and I'm grateful to be here with you. We are in the midst of a men's series here, For Men by Men, and we want to help you men get empowered relationally. All right? If you're with a man and you are not a man, this is going to be educational, right? Please go back and listen to the first series episode where we explored the three types of men in partnership. And then the second part in the series around how men indoctrinate each other, right? Men with a closed heart is how we explored that. We looked at why men have closed hearts. And when you research it a little bit and you understand psychology, it's extremely straightforward why men have closed hearts. In this episode, we're going to explore what the cost is if men's hearts continue to stay closed and they stay shut down and they stay disconnected. What kind of lives are we looking at then? And the farther a man gets away from himself, the harder it is for him to come home to himself, to who he really is. Okay, so in this episode, we're just going to explore toxic masculinity and the MeToo movement. All right, if you're just brand new and joining us here at The Smart Couple, we explore all kinds of relationship issues, conflict, boundaries, sex, interpersonal stress, neuroscience, and how all of that makes for great or not so great partnerships long-term. Our primary frame is long-term partnership, but of course this applies to just about any close relationship, the content we share here. Okay, again, please go listen to the other episodes if you want to join us for our live webinar. If it hasn't already passed, April 25th at noon Mountain Time, relationshipschool.com/webinar. It's a webinar for men who want to get empowered relationally and sexually, all right? Okay, we got to talk about MeToo for a minute, and I haven't talked about it really on the podcast. Adam Galad and I did a short episode on it where he mostly talked because I was interviewing him. But I want to throw down my 2 cents here because it's long overdue and people get confused, I think. So Me Too and toxic masculinity, right? First, let's just, again, I like to zoom out. Why are we talking about this? Because we want to be in a world where more men are emotionally available for partnership and who can be great partners in long-term relationships. They can become great husbands and fathers. And as research has shown, even the Gottman showed this, that if the husband actually does work on himself around his heart and his own emotional baggage, the family system is so much better off because he sometimes is the bottleneck, right? So men, this is always a call to action for you to decide, make a choice if you want to be the kind of man that future generations look up to and say thank you, or they look back and say fuck you because of the carnage you left, right? That's where my life was headed, remember? I was headed in the direction of carnage because I'd done a lot of drugs and drank a lot of alcohol and had 10 years of failed relationships behind me. I used to call it my wake, the wake of women that have been left behind by me. The carnage, really, the hurt relationships, the hazing, even the hurt male relationships that I had that I left behind because I sucked at relationship and I had a closed heart. So I have participated. I also got to start by saying I've participated in toxic masculinity. I was in a college fraternity for 4 years. I became the president of this college fraternity, and I allowed hazing to go on under my watch, and I participated in hazing. I did the very things I talked about not to do in the last episode, calling other men pussies, gay, weak, feminine, you name it. That was me. And I was very far gone, which is why I was drinking 5 to 6 nights a week and just getting wasted because I was so disconnected from myself. And why I would go into nature and into the mountains to go climbing and to push the edge because that was where I felt alive. And I felt like I had a lot of friends, but I felt miserable and alone inside. But on the outside, it looked like I had a great life. But on the inside, I was a mess. Okay. So thankfully, women, as women continue to get more empowered, their voices are heard more and more, hopefully. And the MeToo movement is an example where more and more women are coming forward with rape accounts and sexual assault and sexual violence, sexual predation. And this is a huge step in the right direction, obviously, because a survivor of rape or any molestation or assault, shame is often the thing that prevents them from coming out and coming forward. And then as we learned from Elizabeth Warren, as we learned in the Supreme Court hearings, a woman can come out publicly and has to only to be told that she's lying. This is so intense, right? For any survivor of any trauma to be told it didn't happen by the perpetrator or by other people obviously adds another layer of emotional scarring. So I'm just grateful for you courageous women out there. I know just about every woman has, the stats are pretty staggering when it comes to rape and sexual assault, and just the ways in which men have treated women over the years, or probably eons. And so I aim to be the kind of man that's like, hey, I'm not this, toxic masculine dude and this patriarchal asshole, even though I'm in a position of power being a white heterosexual privileged male. I own that privilege, and I see that I have an upper hand in everywhere in life because I'm white and because I'm male and because I'm heterosexual and because I'm privileged. So I want to use that privilege for good, and I believe I am with the relationship school. I trust myself here. And I've had a journey to make. And you men that are listening, some of you are just breaking out of the male conditioning, the man code, and breaking free and becoming yourself, which is enormously courageous on your part because you're risking losing all your male friends. You're risking being made fun of. And I just applaud your courage here, okay? So when you look at Matt Lowry, what's that guy's name? Harvey Weinstein, and the countless other men that are now being busted for rape and sexual assault and taking advantage of women in the workplace, etc. It's interesting to me that people act surprised. To me, there's no surprise here, guys. The sad truth is men are doing this everywhere. And some women still are not coming forward, obviously. And some men are still not coming forward because 1 in, I think it's 5 men are molested. 1 in 5 boys. So we got a big problem here. And it's not just priests in the Catholic Church. This is the neighbor down the street. This is the boss, the coworker that is at your company right now. And this is a version of toxic masculinity that hurts our gender, men. This hurts our reputation. Now men are feeling more fearful than ever that they're in the workplace and they can't have a conversation with a woman without being accused of coming on to them. And so this is some men's situation. I get that this is not going on everywhere. But I know that from being in a part of a lot of men's groups and private men's forums on Facebook, et cetera, that there's a good number of men who are very afraid right now because they are afraid that someone is going to tell them that how they behaved on a date or because they had sex with a woman a year ago where it was consensual, but it wasn't verbally consensual. There was no signature, that somehow that was rape. There's some very dicey terrain here. And I just know that men are fearful, and rightfully so, because our gender has overstepped the bounds so many fucking times. It's no wonder why we men have the reputation we have, right? So this is the situation we're in. Thank you to everyone who supported the MeToo movement and is speaking up. And I've got some feedback, all right? I first, before I give feedback, I want to help understand the dilemma. So not only do we have men disconnected from their hearts because of the boy code, as we talked about in the last episode, men are shamed into adhering to the boy code, which turns into the man code, which turns into a man who is emotionally unavailable in a partnership, and that gets very frustrating for his partner, male or female. And then he has a miserable life because he's disconnected. Now, if this continues on, it turns into toxic masculinity and something really dark, where he can be so angry and enraged and hurt around not feeling seen and accepted that he will take revenge. He will act out, and he will hurt other people because he is hurting. This is what the bully does. This is why people bully and prey upon people who are not empowered. Part of the reason is because they themselves have been deeply traumatized and felt really alone and not seen, and now they take a gun in their hand and they shoot other people. So when we look at the epidemic here with young men shooting up schools, it's the same thing. We're dealing with disconnected men who feel alone and isolated, rejected and abandoned. And that happened from in their family. It happened on the playground. It happened over and over again. All right. A lot of these boys grew up in fatherless homes. We now know that research is clear. So without good male role models, again, they're just watching TV and playing violent video games. And there's limited gun control. So the problem gets out of hand. And I'm saying I'm coming at it from a relationship angle here, that we men have disconnected from our empathy, our sensitivity, our heart, and our emotion. We close our heart and we're hurt. And when people are hurt, they get angry and they do hurtful things. Okay? Just look at your own life. When you get hurt in a marriage, you might lash out, right? You might talk shit about your ex. That's you being hurt. You're still hurt. All right? Someone cheated on you and you talk shit about them. That's you being hurt. You're angry and you haven't worked through that. All right? So you're no different here. Their level of acting out is just more extreme. All right? Okay. So the sexuality piece, the Matt Lowrys, right? The Harvey Weinsteins. In 2012, I wrote a blog post called "What Happens When We Don't Teach Our Boys About Sex?" Right? What happens when we don't teach our boys about sex? This blog post went viral. It was on the Good Men Project. It was on the JaysonGaddis.com website. And a lot of people shared it. And a lot of people were like, holy shit. And this was around the time of the Penn State incident in 2012, when Joe Paterno was kind of looking the other way, when coaches were abusing male football players in college. Not just like, this isn't just Pee Wee Little Leagues. This is like abuse going on at the collegiate level, right? So I kind of called out the issue, which I believe is still the case, which is we are not teaching boys about their bodies and their sexuality and the power of their penises and consent and how to do relationship, how to build rapport first, how to create emotional intimacy. We're not teaching boys that. We're just showing them pornography and we're not talking about it. We're doing the opposite. We're a church and we're saying sex is bad and wrong, or we're a school and we're not adequately covering sex education, and we're parents who feel ashamed of our own sexuality, so we don't teach it to our kids. And so we're jammed up around our sexuality. And so a boy gets raised learning about sexuality. How? Through his peers who don't know shit, and porn, which is extremely one narrow slice of sexuality, okay? Just a man basically pounding a woman. That's not how sex actually works. But that is one area of sex, and that's fine. But sex is way more diverse than that, and way more sacred, you could say, than that. And so, wow, like, guys, so I wrote this blog post, right? And I was like, how did we get into this mess? And I'm just saying, we have completely abandoned our boys in teaching them about their bodies and sex and consent and how to do intercourse well, how to have rapport and relationship first, how to build trust, and how to open your heart, and it actually creates even sexier, more beautiful intimacy, all that stuff, right? And to those of you who got a good download, maybe because you didn't grow up in America, congratulations. Maybe you have a pretty empowered sex life. But I know I, for one, got taught how to masturbate by my cousin, and then he turned the lights on and shamed me. And, it was dark. I had a very big sexual trauma around that I had to work through in my adult life. And I've worked through it. I'm grateful for it because it taught me about boundaries and just like, holy shit. But this is the kind of stuff, we're dealing with. Boys are touching each other all the time, while the parents look the other way and be like, oh, they'll just figure it out, guys, it's not good enough. So when we look at Matt Lowry or Harvey Weinstein, I'm not saying their behavior is okay at all. Okay, guys, I'm talking about there's a reason men act out at the workplace sexually and prey upon women. There's a reason for that. And I'm saying number one is you've been very disconnected from your own heart, because when you're in your heart, you don't hurt people. Okay? Just check it out. Like, look at your own life. When you're in your heart, you don't cause harm to other human beings. It's just the way it works. When we're in our heart and we actually care, we have empathy, we don't behave that way. It's when we get triggered, we shut down, we close our heart, we go into the back part of our brain, and we're in our animal self, and we act like animals. It's kill or be killed, right? Especially under like extreme pressure. And then also sexually, boys have been completely dropped and abandoned here. So Matt Lowry likely got shit for sex education. Matt Lowry likely never had his dad sit down and say, dude, this is how you treat a fucking woman. He was in a men's group that said, bro, you don't act like that. That's not how you treat people, right? Harvey Weinstein, same thing. Like these men become animals when no one attends to them. Same with the school shooters. They become fucking animals, enraged, hurt, wounded animals. So they're not just crazy, fucked up people. There's a reason they act this way. All right, if you go watch Robert Sapolsky's TED Talk, all right, on humans, super intense, all right? If you look at violent crime and behavior and you start to actually unpack it, you start to see there's more than meets the eye. This person isn't just a narcissistic jerk, all right? You start to understand, oh, this person grew up in an environment. And even before then, they grew up in utero, in a womb, that maybe the mother and father were alcoholics, or maybe there was violence or abuse or drug addiction, or who knows what. And then there's epigenetics. There's all these factors, folks, that contribute to a person's behavior. And I'm saying here that two of them are a man's conditioning, the boy code. Men are trained from a very young age to adhere to it. It's a straitjacket. It's a prison. And it keeps them from their heart and from their true nature. And they act out. They hurt people, of course. And then the other layer is we don't hold their hand and teach them about sexuality in a really good way, in a heart-centered way. We don't do that. So again, this is the situation we're in, all right? The closed heart over time, leads to deep despair, isolation, and aloneness. It leads to intense acting out and trauma and violence. It leads to all kinds of bad stuff that hurts people. All right. So again, try to understand men. Take a deeper look at psychology. Instead of assuming that men are bad, men are assholes, narcissists are just fucking that way. No, if you understood access to and personality disorders, you'd understand that you have a parenting problem on your hands. Kids are not born with personality disorders, all right? There might be people that argue that, but most of the smart people I roll with don't buy that shit, all right? There's, again, epigenetics, sure. There's DNA, there's history, there's genes here. But a lot of human beings' problems are due to especially our relationship problems, are due to how we were raised, what environment we were raised in, right? How we did connection, how we did relationship, whether we got seen or not, whether it was safe for us or not. Okay, great. In upcoming episodes, we're going to go even further here and talk about, okay, now what? Now what? All right. How do men change this? Well, you get connected to yourself, guys. It's that simple. I don't need to tell you how to act in your life if you're in your heart. You're a lot more intuitive there, and you're smart enough to figure it out. But I will teach you how to do relationships if you're a little jammed up, right? Which is primarily what we're about here. Okay. Leave us feedback, please. Leave us a review if you want to get more how-to practical stuff on, okay, I'm a man who's closed. I got a closed heart. I don't want to keep this going and remain isolated and alone and miserable and doing drugs my whole life. Great. Come join us for a free web class. All right. relationshipschool.com/webinar. All right. I look forward to seeing you then. Hey, thanks so much for listening. Relationship School fans and Smart Couple listeners, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. All right. Do us a favor, subscribe, share one of these videos with a friend. All right. We want to help the planet get their act together around relationships. And you are one of them. So thank you.